Welcome to the second part of our interview with Mr. René Boringer, Vice President of ESMIG's Executive Committee and co-founder and Chief Executive Officer of Cuculus GmbH. We will continue this inspiring conversation by exploring the impact of regulations, future developments in cybersecurity, and key lessons he has learned throughout his career. René, welcome back.
Thank you, Johan. Pleasure.
How do current and upcoming regulations impact the way utility security is implemented, and do you think they are sufficient?
Oh, so are they sufficient? No. That I can already say. I think there is a lot of thinking and energy going into that regulatory framework, which should help utilities to make the right decision. So that's actually how I see it. So it is something where utilities should guidance beyond the commercial interest of a utility to invest into things which are of common interest for the society. All right. So typically, especially security is something where everybody knows it is very important, but it's very fast that this security requirements are skipped because of commercial needs or efficiency needs or simplicity, right? So in the future, in the past, I used to say, if comfort hits security, which is completely in contradiction, then always comfort wins. Right? It means that after a while you go for the easy way, which is not really bothering you. So for that one, regulation is very important, so that everybody has to follow the same rules, and that means also that cost need to be borne by everyone. So nobody can get a commercial benefit just because he's skipping or bypassing security rules. So from that perspective, I think it's very important to have them. But now we are also coming to a problem. Typically, everything what comes through regulation is incredibly slow. So when we see now how regulatory frameworks are changed on European level or also on the national levels, that is actually a time horizon which is exactly the same as we needed to have the internet from zero to what it got today. Right? It's 15, 20 years sometimes until a new cycle is through with a completely new technology. So if you see how fast technology goes ahead and how fast regulation can follow, then there will be a gap which is increasing and increasing every single year. So that's why, in general, I would say we need to question how our regulatory rules are defined and getting them into implementation later on. So one of the big key problems is that it is so extremely slow compared with the technology development. And I want to make it also a little bit more tangible on the example of smart metering. When we are investing now into smart meters, then this investment should hold at least for the next 10 to 15 years. So whatever we implement now should be protected and built in a way that it can survive the attacks we might get into from 15 years from now. So do you think that there's any regulation outside which supports that?
Yes, it is an interesting point of view, but maybe if we know for two regulatives till now, NIS 1 from 2016 and NIS 2 from 2022, if I remember. And do you see in your job, do you see influence of that directives on your software, on your job, on utilities, and what do you think? Do we need some new directives in the future?
Yeah, of course we see that, but also in the future. So we are still implementing the old regulatory frameworks or the rules which were derived from that regulatory frameworks. Everything else is coming in the future, right? But the threats are already there. So now we are addressing new functions. So we have talked in the first interview also already about flexibility management in Germany. That's going already in those direction, right? So as soon as we are adding a two-way communication where we can also influence and control the production and injection of energy as well as also the consumption, then we have new requirements, and then we need to look into that new regulatory frameworks. And here we see it already. So we see it now on the RFI and maybe in some early cases also on the RFP stage that utilities are asking for compliance to the new framework as well. The vendor environment is not yet fixed, so we do not have really solutions which you can just label as compliant. So it needs to be built, and we will see many variations of different interpretations also of the regulatory framework. Right?
Okay, but you mentioned there is always a gap between regulatives and current situation. And looking ahead, how do you see the evolution of cybersecurity in utilities over the next years? And what should the industry stakeholders prioritize?
So when we come very concrete again to smart metering, then I think it will move away from just looking at meters and just looking at the communication link between the meters and the backend system. It will go more into an holistic approach of use cases end to end, right? That is actually what I think will happen, so that we are also going away from let's say building IT systems block by block. So one vendor, next vendor, next vendor, all in a chain. And then somebody tries to enable some security here and there. So it must be a security by design, which is in the end-to-end process. And if a component in that chain cannot fulfill that high security requirement, it needs to be exchanged. There should be no mitigation of that problem on the back of the security of the system. So that is one change. So to see security as a holistic problem for the whole organization. And again, I'm not only talking about IT systems. I'm also talking about the processes within utilities, the people within the utilities and outside of the utilities. So everything is actually need to be taken together into account when you want to have a secure, and I again would emphasize on a resilient system, which is able to react on the unforeseen, on the day zero attacks itself, and makes it easier to keep the system alive.
Okay, but what do you think? Is there enough standards, or do we need some evolution of standards in terms of cybersecurity?
Really good point. I think we have a couple of standards, best practices, how you can implement systems in a way that they are protected and they have that kind of protection by design. But for example, it's already extremely difficult to implement such an end-to-end security because utilities are separated into different areas, right? You have a meter department, you have an IT department, which is normally also responsible for communication, and then you have the process guys and the subject matter experts on the different use cases. And those guys need to work together end to end. And that in itself is a problem because normally they have different parts of the projects at different times. They're not really involved in the whole end-to-end planning. And I think therefore, it would be helpful to have some best practice frameworks shared between utilities, how they can implement the new systems, which cannot just be protected by throwing the system in a room and closing the door, right? No, they need to communicate. So we have a lot of frameworks which are telling how systems should be set up from the IT perspective, but we have not too many best practices going across the whole utility with all the involved departments, and then coming up with a with a good solution for protecting the whole end-to-end solution.
Okay, so we need some solution standards from an integrative perspective, let's say.
Yes.
We'll integrate all.
Exactly.
Okay, and you mentioned if we write now regulations and standards, we must look 15 years in the future. And what do you think about this, particularly in light of advancements in quantum computing? How to protect from that?
So what will happen in quantum computing? Of course, it will be used to protect the system, but it will also be used to hack the system. That's a continuous race which will never stop. For sure not. That's again, I mean, the only way how you break it is if you're designing the system in a different way, and you are not. You need to run the race, right? That's for sure. Every utility need to do it. But if they want to have an advantage, then they need to tackle it also in a different way, so that you can deal with the threats. So I normally classify that threats in a way that I first look at the probability, so how easy it is that it happens. The next one is what kind of impact is there, and then afterwards, what would be the mitigation, for example, the mitigation cost to avoid that kind of risk. So, and that is the first thing we need to think about. So, what will be attacked by that quantum computing, right? Is it the meter key? Is it the meter key which will be compromised, and they are hacking into a meter now easier because they can decrypt the keys?
Or key management system, complete key
Is it the
management.
key management system? Or is it a simulation of the whole grid, so that the simulation can find out, okay, it's only this one power plant I need to shut off, and then the whole network will collapse, right? And the protection against these three different scenarios, meters, key management, or the simulation of the grid, is completely different. So it will be there. It will be extremely challenging. It's a race what we have to run, but there's no solution now, I would say, what we can do or what we should do. We need to see.
Yeah. Okay, but we return on idea you mentioned case studies, case by case analysis.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, interesting discussion about future in
Yeah.
cybersecurity. Okay, one question for the end, general question. What is the most important lesson you learned throughout your career?
So the most important is there's always a way. You have to find it, and if you think there's no way, then you need to ask a couple of times more why certain things should happen, or if there are other ways of implementing it. And that actually fits very, very well to the topic we have here. So if you cannot protect the system with a special security measurement, okay, maybe there are other things to mitigate your risks. To avoid that you are completely impacted or down in your network or whatever. So there's always a way if you think out of the box. That is actually the first lesson. And if I can add the second one, then it is everything takes much longer than you thought initially it would take. So being patient and seeing these developments, again, also linked to the security. A lot of high security solutions are available in metering since 15 years from now. But still, sometimes we are getting frustrated when we start a new project nowadays, and the security is on a level we were even actually arguing against 15 years ago. Right? But we never leave the hope. So maybe it will change in future.
Okay, can we say that this is an entrepreneur perspective regarding
Absolutely.
our co-founder of Cuculus and 15 years of development?
Yeah, it's also technology, right? So I'm an electrical engineer from education and telecommunications engineer. So also there, from this perspective, everything what I said holds. We saw many things coming up, but it took quite a while to be adopted into the market. But the cycles are getting shorter and shorter. That's the good one, right? So the attacks changing faster, but also the solutions are changing faster. Yeah.
Okay,
There is
okay,
hope.
there is hope. Very good for end. Okay, thank you for joining us, René, and for sharing your expertise. This conversation was truly inspiring, and I'm sure our audience will enjoy it as much as I did.
I
This
hope so. Was a pleasure, Johan.
Okay, this concludes our conversation. Stay with us for more insights in the 7th season of Smart Talks with Johan and the important topic of cybersecurity. Thank you, René.
Thank you.